Hey everyone, this is Amanda Moody, and I'm going to share my second book review with you guys. For this review, I chose to read this story. It's called Lincoln's Melancholy: How Depression Challenged a President and Fueled His Greatness. This book was written by Joshua Wolf Shenk, and the copyright date is 2005. And before I forget, I read this book cover to cover, every word on every page. Okay, so this book was actually listed as a notable book by the New York Times. And if you ask anyone, generally, if you ask anyone about Abraham Lincoln, the main things they'll be able to tell you is that they remember he was depressed, or they've always heard he's depressed or sad, and that he was the president during the Civil War. And that's usually about the extent of the conversation that I seem to have with my relatives when I told them that I was reading a story about Abraham Lincoln. But with this book, Shenk develops further into why he was depressed and how it helped shape his career. So why was he depressed? At an early age, Lincoln experienced a lot of loss. He lost his mother, I think they said when he was like 8 years old, to sickness. And then he also lost his sister, who they were really close with. And then also his dad was a farmer, and Abraham Lincoln wasn't really into that. He preferred to read poetry and books, and his dad did not like this. And so oftentimes he was severely punished for this. But Lincoln used this reading the books and poetry as his self-education and an outlet, because he not only read the poetry, but sometimes he wrote it as well. So that was a way to process his thoughts. Also, so he was depressed because of, he had a lot of sadness that went on in his childhood. And then as he became a young man, the feelings didn't go away. He actually experienced a lot of heartbreak when he was trying to find a wife. There was one woman that he cared deeply for who also died. So he just had a lot of just hard things happen to him in his lifetime. And it's also, the author said, take into thought that during this time period, the 1800s, it was quite common for people to, for mothers and fathers to die early, or, there were a lot of diseases that didn't have cures yet. So it wasn't uncommon for this to have happened, but it just took a toll on Lincoln himself and made him more reclusive. And, oftentimes they said he would be just lost in thought and have a really sad look on his face. And then he'd snap out of it and he'd be fine again. So, so as a young child, he had a lot of heartbreak. And then as a young man, he had a lot of hardships go on. And then actually, the author shared in 1841, he was so sad and depressed that he even considered suicide. Thankfully, he decided against that. He had always thought that he wanted to leave a legacy here on earth. He thought that, he wanted to accomplish something that people would remember him by and that would have a good effect on the world. And so he had not felt like he had accomplished that yet. And so he decided to live, which is a wonderful thing. And so Lincoln pushed through his depression and came out stronger on the other side because of that. He didn't succumb to his depression. He felt the urge to live on and to, push through those feelings and to grow. So with all of this depression, it's interesting to think about that the author shared that he also was a comedian. Like, he drew people to himself because of his jokes. He liked to tell stories and jokes. He often, read books to find new jokes to tell people. So he loved to make people happy and to laugh, which also reminds us of comedians nowadays that, you find out, like Robin Williams, for example. He was a very famous comedian. And then, we find out he was committed suicide because he was depressed, so it's common for people who are sad to have an outward humorous look at life, is what was shared in this book. But so it said that he was relatable to people because of his storytelling. He loved telling jokes. He's very personable, and he wasn't afraid of hard work. So that made a big impression on people who were around him and became his followers. Let's see, Lincoln's melancholy taught him to face troubles head on and work through them. So instead of succumbing to his depression, he, kept working towards finding a good to leave with this world. So that made him a great candidate for becoming a president. In his career, he was a lawyer in law and dealt with politics. And so that led him to a seat in Congress, and then eventually to be the president of the United States in 1860. I would definitely recommend this book for people who want to learn more about Abraham Lincoln. I think it shows an interesting side and helps understand why he was such a sad guy. And I love how the author shares how he worked through those feelings and became a really great leader of our nation. And so I would definitely recommend this book, and I enjoyed it. And as far as incorporating this into a lesson plan, I found Social Studies 5th grade standard was recognize key Northern and Southern personalities. And so this one would be Abraham Lincoln. And so for this one, I thought it would be great for the students to be, reading about the Civil War, studying what led up to that, and then learn about Abraham Lincoln and create a scrapbook about him. So incorporating their timeline, creating like a timeline of his life into a hands-on scrapbook research project for him. And so I thought it would be neat for the students to use their textbooks, library books, other non-textbook sources, and of course reputable sites on the internet to find this kind of information. And the students would create a scrapbook of Lincoln's life. It would include his early life, the events that happened in his early life, and the events that led up to his career and as a president. And then also when he wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which was to free slavery. So yeah, that is my second book review. Thanks. Bye.